Hey everybody, it's Brian here from quantlabs.net. Okay, so I've gone through this book. It's done in Python, Successful Algorithm Trading by Michael Halsmore. He runs Quantstart.com. I've been very curious and always have been curious about Python, but never really got anywhere. But I will say this book is, in my mind, probably the standard de facto. And if you really want to learn how to trade with Python and using Python as your entire end-to-end platform for trading, this is the place to start. This is an excellent book from a very high level. It doesn't get into too heavy math, and it explains end-to-end pretty well in a self-contained kind of way on how to quite possibly set up a automated trading system and environment as well, all in Python. Now, some of the caveats that you've heard me say about this a lot is Python's not easy to set up, so if you're trying to learn it on your own, out of any of the languages I've looked at over the last, 30 years, I would say Python's probably oddly the most difficult, but you do need to get some kind of formal training, I find, with books like this. It's not like where you can pull out RStudio and IDE for R and just start banging away in R and get up and running. With Python, it's a lot harder. The splintering of the two major versions of 2.7 and 3.3, that does not make it an easy path, and it just adds to confusion with Python. But this book will definitely get you up and running. So let me just walk you through the table of contents. I don't want to reveal, obviously, what this person has put a lot of effort into, but it's quite good. Now, I said earlier there's the big caveat of the speed. He does talk about this. He does talk about something like C++ and how you need it for more of a higher, let's say if you want to move into higher frequency trading. Definitely Python is a place to start to basically put together and prototype trading ideas. It's not a bad platform. I'll address Matlab in a little bit on my views of how to integrate this with Matlab and where I'm thinking I may go. But let's just talk right now about the book and Python itself. So right now, what we need to understand is the background of Python, who it's good for. You need to be. This book will not show you how to learn Python. I've just put up a resource on that. As suggested from the Facebook fan page of Quantstart. So I just went through that set of resources. It looks pretty good. So you do need to start there if you're brand new, but if you have basic, let's say basic Python experience, I just find Python's a little wonky for me, but it is a pretty easy language to set up. So as you can see here in these chapters, he talks about all the different industry bias types. I learned a lot from it. He defines things quite well on slippage, commission, market impact. So as I said, if you're brand spanking new to it, this is a good place. He talks about things like latency, language choices. A lot of it's pretty fair. How to deploy your solution if you go home, desktop, VPS, or an exchange. He does talk about that. One other thing I will say about this book, it doesn't go into too much detail, but it definitely gives you an amazing roadmap to work off of, and you can easily go online and dig yourself on these specific topics as you drill down. Namely in VPS and desktop if you want to learn about your trading platform once you go live. Also, he does give you some good resources on where to get some other stuff, which is fair. He talks about the pros and cons of each operating system, all the different libraries and packages you'll use with Python. This, I think, right here is alone the price, worth the price of admission for this book. Nowhere else have I seen a complete end-to-end walkthrough on how to install these things. It's a lot easier than I thought, but when I try it on my own, I basically fall flat on my face, and you'll hear me bitch about it. But he does use Linux. I can admit Linux is much easier to work with than in Windows. He says Mac is still a challenge, so I guess for Python development, your best bet is to use Ubuntu and Linux, and I can vouch for that as well. Also, he talks about things like a database, the NoSQL and the relationship type of databases, and these are fair as well. The one in NoSQL, I look like I'm going to be moving forward with NoSQL, as well as Redis. He doesn't mention that. I guess he's more into document stores. Redis is totally different. But again, that's another area of learning. Also, he's using MySQL. He gives you, again, all the source code to get you up and running with MySQL. It's fair enough when you're starting. I said this book is really, really useful as a roadmap. All the different data frequencies to work with, the advantages of them, how to get your sources of data. He also sounds like he's mentioning DT and IQFI, which I vouch for again. There's a couple other talks about the disadvantages of the free ones like Quandl or Yahoo, cleaning it, the data. Then he goes into statistical learning. Again, I'm not going to go too much into this, but he does cover all the stuff that's very popular out there and what quants use, quote unquote quants use for statistical or arbitrage. Again, with forecasting, this stuff I found was very useful, specifically on the verge, I guess, of machine learning. Describes it quite well. It's got source code with it, so this is probably where I'll focus more. But again, I'll talk about that when I address the Matlab as well. And then he talks about all the different performance metrics. All the standard I've looked at as well, no different. Drawdown analysis, basically your portfolio analysis. Some nothing new here. Actually, there is quite a bit of new stuff here, but you've heard me talk about Kelly criterion, value at risk. Nice thing is he talks about the disadvantage. You don't hear a lot of that, so that's kind of nice to see. This author really knows his stuff, without a doubt. He's showing things you never think of, and that's including me coming from outside the world of finance. This is another area that I found was really, really useful. This backtesting engine, an event-driven. He's built out these frameworks. I think these are fairly useful. And then the implementation of them with different demonstrations. From a production point of view, I think this is a great place to learn. I can't say if it's really production ready. It probably is. From my point of view, I'm not sure if I'd go exclusively with Python unless you're going to go with very low frequency. But then on the other hand, this is a lot of overkill to do that. I'd still be really sticking with my methodology with Matlab, and I could probably say the same thing about R as well. But if you're wanting to learn, the place to be to learn it is definitely through this book, without a doubt. And also he talks about strategy optimization, things like grid searching and things that I've heard about but never really looked at. All this is quite useful. He doesn't focus so much on visualization. I just want people to understand that. People get caught up on that. I'm one of these visual kind of people. That's where you can easily get bogged down. He's just using Matplotlib. But again, Matlab is pretty good at that. And I have my methodologies. So all in all, that's pretty well the whole book. And it's excellent. It's an excellent read. Learn a lot from it. Is this probably going to be your final destination? Not likely. Once you start getting more serious, you'll quickly outgrow Python. But for prototyping, it's really good. Now, let's talk about Matlab and my approach using Matlab. You're probably very confused by all this, which is fair. But there are some very useful tidbits coming out of this. Again, machine learning. Some of the other things that I really liked was the things I didn't know about when it comes to systems. But this was quite good. So call me a little confused on how to implement that into my workflow with Matlab. But I just want people to understand that you can, and I've done it, I've tested it, it does work with Python. So you can have your Matlab sessions import and interact with Python scripts. Now in terms of libraries, the ones that he's using like pandas and numpy and scipy and all that, I can't vouch if Matlab's going to be 100%. But then the question is, from what I've seen in this book, you can also do in Matlab as well. But there are some big advantages you get with Python. If you want to stick with Python, that's your call, obviously. But there's the big two caveats, which I still firmly believe in, is the splintering of this language with the 2.7, 3.3. This author sticks with the 2.7. That's how he got everything working. He does talk about that, you know, I guess it's just waiting for these major packages to be updated in 3.3. I have no idea where they're at. I'm not a Python guy, so I'd like to say don't ask me because I don't know. But again, if you're wanting to learn about Python, this is an excellent place to start. Very low cost with source code to get you up and running. Again, will this be your end destination? I think you could easily outgrow it. He talks about the performance in a lot of areas. He really focuses on clustering and parallelization, which can be done very easily in Matlab. Yes, it is a paid product, but I sometimes factor time versus money, and to save the time, the money with open source technologies like Python is fine and good, but there's always costs and frustration and time, which at the end of the day does cost money. So I see myself sticking with what I'm doing. Now in terms of the actual strategies that are used, this book has all of the popular stuff. There's nothing I've seen that's really unique in it. But again, if you do choose the path of machine learning or statistical, this is again a great place to start. From my understanding with machine learning, with Matlab versus Python, I understand that Matlab is quite good at machine learning, but again, it's just choice and budget. Now the other thing is, I'm just trying to think of what else I could say. Performance is a big hindrance. I think this is a great resource to learn from. Both Quantopian and Quantstart are great places to learn, and from what I'm seeing on other forums, people do hit challenges of technology and specifically speed. I've not yet come across any limitations that Matlab will bring you outside of cost. But yeah. Oh, the thing I was wanting to mention as well, the actual strategies here are all pretty well quantitative. Nothing wrong with that. In my mind, I've kind of not put as much focus onto that as I'd like, just due to the fact of all the other popular courses that I'm learning. And all the ones that I'm finding that are highly profitable are not using quant as much. But I'm not saying I'm not going to do it, but we're way down the road for me to really look at quant, because it's just on the math side, it is fairly advanced. In terms of my approach, if you've been following me via the blog or the email or whatever, I'm still on the fundamental side. Don't ask me why. I just like looking at supply and demand in real time and building trading systems and making automated trading decisions around that. they seem to work, and I'm more and more convinced that's a good place to start and build a live trading environment around that as my priority versus, something that's purely on technical analysis or quant. And I say that specifically from what I'm learning. Quant's still using a lot of historical. There's a lot of emphasis on backtesting in this, and to this day, I'm finding more and more people are struggling with using historical data as a means to forecast and build trading signals and a trading kind of algorithm out of that. I'm not sure if you're going to get a more steady return, more consistent return, and on top of that, the actual returns themselves, if they'll be as optimal as opposed to a fundamental view. I don't know, I can't say, but that's why I'd rather put the emphasis on the fundamental first before I start looking at either of these in terms of technical or quantitative, because the technical I have in my AK-47 system, there is some of that built in with trend line analysis and moving average, just simple stuff, nothing low complicated things like moving in RSI and stochastic and all that. So as it stands, that's my path. I'm really glad I finally took a stab at something like this, but again, I'm not saying no to this at this point. I do find this is a really important book and a good standard. This is really powerful, a very powerful book. But from my experience enough for the 6 months I played with R and the limitations that I've hit, I think just generally with Python and some of the stuff I see here, I can already do in Matlab. On top of that, the integration with Matlab with other languages, specifically I just showed you with Python. This is why I use Matlab, love Matlab, and again, I've not hit any sort of limitations. On top of the code generating capabilities, and on top of that, with the what do you call it, the Simulink as well. It's very powerful, different, revolutionary, and unique, and you can bang stuff out very, very fast when you get good at it. Python here is becoming, and I can also say the same thing about R, all the hand coding that's involved, but when you look at the development and workflow that you can get out of tools like MuPad and Simulink and code generation, and on top of that, being able to integrate that on top of being able to generate your own algorithms and not be dependent on other packages like NumPy or was it NumPy, or how do you pronounce it, SciPy, and all these other pandas and all that. It just takes away that laziness, and it gives you the ability to have the real advantages of being able to walk through an algorithm and including the underlying of the packages themselves. And that's why I'm moving ahead with my workflow. I'm not saying that this approach is bad, it's not, and I probably will maybe one day revisit this, but I do know that Python will be a very important language for me when it comes to networking in a Linux environment. That's where I plan to use a lot of it. Everybody I talk to loves Python from that perspective, for the text searching capabilities and the web scraping capabilities. I think that's where Python really shines. But in terms of trading, I can't say. I'm not experienced enough, but looking at this book, it's very, very, very compelling. But again, when you start to use Matlab at the level that I've used it, I still think that Matlab, for me, and I keep saying for me, works best. And I do like this book. I think, as I keep saying, it's a standard of fact, especially if you're new, you want to grow with Python. This is the book to work off of, and Quantstart seems to be a really, really good set of resources. But that parallelization and all that fun stuff may help out. I can't say, but I always say the same thing, that with Python, R, because it's all built on C, all roads lead to C and eventually C++. So great book, great place to learn. I learned a lot from it. I plan to use, hopefully, maybe some of the code, who knows, but it's a really powerful book. But on the other hand, I still see myself using Matlab and the workflow that I'll be introducing very soon, in actually 2 days. So, actually it's on my site anyways, but excellent book. great resource, and if you're gonna do it with trading and Python, this is the place to be at Quantstart and this book. And I have no affiliation with this guy. I never talked to him, I had no correspondence with him, but I did take the plunge and I really liked it. Over and out.